about a dozen others. With that, I'd like to introduce my co-organizer, Ron Chandler, to introduce our speaker.
You would think after the last time they'd know better than to have me introduce anybody. So, what can I say about Jake Meraki that you already don't know? Anybody?
Who's Jake? No.
Very good. Jake is the founder and owner of Operation Self Reset LLC. Now, in talking with Jake earlier, I found out that this LLC came out of a need to do something based on his own personal experiences. So he's actually coming and presenting from the heart in terms of what this business is. He's also a fire lieutenant with the Milwaukee Fire Department. He's been so for the last 13 years. He lives in Franklin, has only one wife and 3 kids. So, Jake, like a lot of entrepreneurs, started trying to figure out different ways to get out in front of people and market the business. And he started podcasting in 2013. Now, today, his show has been downloaded by over 4.7 million listeners from 78 different countries. He has the #1 ranked podcast in Wisconsin, and his show ranks #3 in ranks in the top 3% of all podcasts on iTunes. Wow. So he's not going to talk too much about Operation Self Reset today, but you can talk to him and learn more about it. What he's going to share today is how he became one of the top podcasters in the world, we can say, because iTunes owns the world, right? And how we can take advantage of some of his knowledge. Before I get out of the way and let him start talking, I do want to make one plug for him. If anybody has an urge to walk on coals, I'm a big fan of The Office, and there was actually an episode where they tried to walk on coals. If anybody wants to do that, you actually will have an opportunity. Each year he hosts 2 live events called Self Reset Power, where attendees, among other things, will walk on hot coals to challenge their emotions that hold them back from creating a bigger impact on their lives. This year the event is going to be at the Aloft Hotel, which is downtown in Milwaukee, on September 9th and 10th. And also, if you are interested in this, on Wednesday morning, the 30th of August, he is going to be featured on a CBS News segment. So, without further ado, Jake Meraki.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate the kind words. And one thing that I want to say when it comes to podcasting, because that's what we're here for. The numbers are great and they sound impressive, but the only thing that really matters when it comes to podcasting is taking that listener off of listening to you in their car or via headphones and making them go to your email list, letting them download something, or even coming to a live event. So you can have 1 listener or 1 billion listeners, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're creating an impact when it comes to podcasting. Now, as this is warming up here, I'm going to give you guys my backstory. Now, back in 2012, I was going through some real estate difficulty. The economy was turning. I was with M&I Bank, one of BMO Harris, and it kind of inspired me to utilize my situation to inspire other people. My father was big into real estate, listened to Jim Rome, Zig Ziglar, all those classics. And it kind of instilled something in me that, it's all about perspective. And I thought, why not me to start a blog? Right? Blog is where you kind of first start. You get a domain name, Operation Self Reset, you build it out, you start to use different keywords and stuff like that. And over time, over the next couple of months, it was turning okay, but I wasn't making that big of an impact. Until I listened to Pat Flynn. He has a podcast called Smart Passive Income. The guy is awesome. He's so down to earth. And it inspired me to take my business to the next level. And he inspired me to start a podcast. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go after this and see what happens. And from that, great things truly have done very well for myself. My business is basically podcasting. I do some blogs, I do some videos, but my number one stream of bringing in new traffic is podcasting. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, what you do, if you're physical, if you just solve one problem, or you're trying to expand your reach, podcasting can suit every single person in here, and most importantly, there's more than enough room for each and every one of you guys. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So, we're gonna back up here, because this was not prepared correctly. Let me just back up. Also too, this is getting videotaped live, because there are some members here that are unable to view this presentation.
In other words, this part will be edited.
Hi, everybody. Please save the flow. So my story, we talked about that already. I guess I'll have to fill that in on the video. But basically, what is podcasting? First of all, who has ever listened to a podcast or knows about podcasting? Raise your hand. Okay, majority of us, right? So podcasting is nothing more than taking your voice, recorded on a computer, turning that computer voice into called an MP3, and then you put that on a host. The host is like the platform of where it kind of leapfrogs into the abyss of iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, all those different platforms. And then it obviously goes to the world. But the best part and the most important part here is it's on-demand content. The one unique thing about podcasting compared to video or YouTube is that podcasting, you can download the content on your phone, and then you do not have to be connected to Wi-Fi or use your data to listen to that content. And that is one of the most important things that I believe that makes podcasting so powerful and popular, is because people are able to go work out, they're able to go on long drives, they're able to do things around the house while listening to your voice, your inspiration, your information, and of course, all about your business. Second here, why? I kind of talked about it, but let's dive into it a little bit more. This is where it gets exciting. The traffic is enormous. Right now, there's between 1 and 2 billion people that are listeners of podcasts on all different platforms. Now, back in 2013, iTunes made a big deal about them reaching 1 billion subscribers in the iTunes store. Now, why is this important? That was in 2013, and as we can see the progression of technology, it has only expanded. And if you can see my number 3 here, it's in every smartphone, and even smart cars are getting into having podcasts being able to play in your car without you having to do too much hassle for it to connect on in. Now the middle number here, 600,000. 600,000. What does that mean? Probably the most important. There's around 600,000 podcasts currently in the universe. Some of those podcasts were started right in the beginning, so 2004. Some of those podcasts have dropped out. They stopped for some reason, issues with the show, and they just, they decided to shut it down. But even with all those shows that are quote unquote dead, they are wrapped into that 600,000 shows right now in the podcasting world. Now you're thinking, well, that's a lot of shows out there. Well, compared to 1.2 to 1 to 2 billion people that are listening, there's more than enough space for each and every one of us to get our share of the piece of the pie. So this was a great quote by Pat Flynn, the gentleman that I told you about that started, kind of inspired me. He said this: podcasting is one of the most intimate connections you can make with an audience. There's no other platform where a person will put your voice inside of their eardrum and listen from start to finish. Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income. And when I heard that quote for the first time, I kind of laughed because it is true. I can plug his voice into my ears for an hour-long dog walk, but yet if my wife was to whisper in my ear, I'd flinch away, I need my space.
This is being broadcast.
Yeah. She watches everything, so but it's very true. I mean, these people, and the most important thing here is they listen from start to finish. When you build that connection, when you build that raw self of you bringing your voice into the world, people like that. People get that. They really connect with you, and they want to know, who is this fake guy about? What do they do? Where can I find out more about them? And they're interested and intrigued. Because the one thing that is really popular today is vlogging, right? And where people are holding a camera and all that stuff, because people like real. Gone are the days of trying to be fake, sitting in front of your Lamborghini, taking selfies, and you're a big deal. People are done with that. They want raw, true people. And when you can build that connection, truly they will start listening to you from start to finish. And impact creates connection. We talked about the raw self. And most importantly, it brings you traffic and generates more sales. The people that have that likability, become your raving fans. Raving fans will buy your ebook. They'll go to your course. They'll listen to every podcast. They'll read your guest posts on other sites, and they become a fan for life. And once you grab them and hold them, and of course you're giving respect both ways, they will be on this journey with you, and they'll see you grow with the progression of your business. So the sales cycles for podcasts is pretty simple. The consumer downloads your product, they listen to you, and at the end or in the beginning of each episode that you create, an episode is 25-minute to 45-minute segment of you talking, there's a call to action. Say, hey, if you want more information, sign up for my email list. Go to this website. Hey, I just delivered, or I just released a book. Head on out to Amazon, buy my book. Leave a review on my iTunes, wherever the case may be, a call to action. People like the content, but people want more of you. You always have to direct them, because we are truly like a herd of sheep. If nobody is in the back kind of pushing us along, sometimes we just kind of hang out and just keep on listening to stuff without taking that next step to go and visit. So how? One of the most popular questions when it comes to the podcasting world, how do I do this? What kind of equipment do I need? Do I need to be in a soundproof room? Does it have to, really quiet? I want my voice to be crystal clear. It doesn't have to be. It's very, very simple. We have a microphone. Now, microphones come in all different shapes and sizes. They can be, obviously, I've recorded podcasts just using my free Apple headset. But maybe the most, probably the flagship is this microphone. It's ATR 2100. You can buy it on Amazon, $70. Voice sounds perfectly. The best part is you take the USB and you plug it into your computer. There is no weird mixing stuff. It's one cord and you can just set it and forget it. Probably the most impactful. That's what I started with. A couple of microphones I upgraded to, but I finally decided to be a sportscaster, and kind of a big deal. Honey, not now, I'm podcasting. I have 3 little kids, and needless to say, I need to make sure that I got a good seal on there. But nonetheless, it's not about the equipment, because like I said, if you want to really, professional sounding, $70 will get you there. If you want the cool stuff, you can spend much more. This was like $200 on Amazon. But as we know, there's copious amount of equipment out there. Don't get wrapped into that type of stuff. The second thing you need is a computer. Everybody should have a computer. 2 types of platforms. If you're a Mac user, use GarageBand. If you're a PC user, use Audacity. It's a free, open software, easy to use. If you don't understand it, go on the YouTube machine. They'll tell you everything, how to fix it up, to set it up, all that stuff. Super simple. And you may be thinking, oh, it's getting a little complex. There's a famous quote up there, you're smart, figure it out. Right? Hold you're smart, just figure it out. If you want this to work, it will work with you. And then lastly here, there's a service, this is the host. Remember I was telling you, take your MP3 file, you put it on a platform for it to spring off into the abyss. It's called Libsyn. Libsyn is what the pros use, it's what I use, and what other people use. It's great, it's reliable, all that stuff. And then lastly, all the stuff at the bottom is free. That's where all your podcasts can be found at. Yes?
What about YouTube for the host?
No, you can, currently YouTube will not allow you to spring it off into other branches. Maybe you can, I don't know, but you need Libsyn because they can reach so many other specific podcasting services. So YouTube, I don't know the logistics on that, so maybe I'll have to research it and get back to you. But if you guys are interested, I would really stick with this framework right here, going through Libsyn, and then in a minute I will share how to get your audio-only podcast on YouTube for more exposure, okay? All right, so this guy right here, his name is Cliff Ravenscraft. He is like a geek when it comes to podcasting. His room is insulated, 12 inches. He has all the gizmos. His setup down here is about $12,000. It's to reduce the static in his home, so it's crystal clear. He has this huge mixing board, everything like that. He has multiple microphones, all this craziness, and people see this and they go, oh my God, I need that. This is what I need to be a successful podcaster. But if you were to flip on over, you heard my steps, you heard what I'm doing. This is my setup. A computer, the microphone, that's it. That's it. And then of course I take my computer to Wi-Fi and I upload stuff. But nonetheless, I was able to record a podcast during July 4th up in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. That's where my family has a cottage. And it was really cool because obviously I'm in the middle of the lake. But the unique thing was I told my audience, hey, I'm recording this out in the middle of the lake. You may hear other boats, you may hear the waves splashing. Huge impact. emails, text messages, people calling me, that was great, we loved it, it was, we could hear this and that, and people like to hear where you're at. They like to hear a different sound than just a muted you talking on a microphone. Again, if you're your raw self, bring your personality into what you do, people will latch on like crazy. So how much does this all cost? Like I said, microphone's $70. The listen service, $5 to $75, depending on what platform or service you want to use. And then again, what is your time worth? Because a lot of people think podcasting is going to take so much time and energy and all that stuff. Again, this is part of your marketing budget. You already do this in your business. All of us were doing it before we ate lunch. We're talking. You could recorded that and put it on a podcast. I mean, we all have the ability to talk about our business. We talk about the pluses, we talk about stories, we talk about what's going on here, the impact there, and I'm telling you, it is worth the investment of your time to make sure that your marketing is going towards the right direction. Again, podcasting. So, insider tips. Everybody wants to know, but where's the real meat and potatoes of getting on iTunes? Where's the real meat and potatoes of podcasting? Why can I get people, or how do I get people into my podcast? Let's dive into it. Free advertising. Who wants to have iTunes advertised for your podcast for free for 8 weeks? Okay. Would that help or hurt your business? Thumbs up to that, right? So how do we do that? On the front page of iTunes, you will find this thing. It's called New and Noteworthy. It's in the middle section of the homepage of iTunes. Every time a new podcast comes into iTunes, iTunes does a nice thing. They will try to get you exposure. They want people to listen to your stuff. So they throw your podcast in this little slidey thing, and only for eight weeks. After 8 weeks, you're on your own. So if you're thinking, I don't know, I don't want to do this long term, cool. Do a podcast for 8 weeks to get people into your podcast, then to lead them into other funnels for a book launch, for an ebook, for a consultation, coaching, wherever the case may be. And then if you don't want to touch it, totally fine, and you can let it go. But you will have the best exposure of your life by being in this sweet little square for 8 weeks. Probably the most impactful thing that iTunes will do for you during your journey of podcasting. The second thing is association, right? Companies want to be associated with an athlete because they show the athlete's really good. That means, Tom Brady uses a Gillette razor. If I use a Gillette razor, I'll be, able to throw touchdown passes. The same with Apple iTunes. Now, wouldn't it be cool if your business, if it was Operation Self Reset, you would have your main domain at the top, right? This is page 1 of Google. Number 2 is my event, Self Reset Power. And number 3 is Operation Self Reset, iTunes, Apple. Now, when people see that, what do you think happens to your credibility, your authority, when they look up your name or your business name? Like, oh, this guy has a podcast. Oh, this guy's on iTunes. Oh, he has good reviews. Oh, I'll check him out. This guy's legit. There's a lot of credibility on getting yourself associated with those 2 simple words, iTunes and Apple. And when you do that, it boosts you up a little bit and increases your notoriety when you're reaching out to new customers or clients. Now, the blue ocean. Have anybody heard of the blue ocean versus a red ocean? Raise your hand if you say yes. Awesome. Okay, for some that do not. A red ocean is basically an ocean that is full of blood. It's hard to compete. You're trying to get room to show yourself. Where you want to go with your business is the blue ocean. A blue ocean is clean, it's open. That's where I say podcasting is. 1 to 2 billion people, only 600,000 podcasts. 2.73, what does that mean? 2.73 million blog posts are posted each day online. It's hard to get exposure, especially when you're starting out. 300 hours, what does that mean? 300 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube every minute. Every minute. So creating that awesome video with an awesome backdrop and lighting and production and all this stuff, you're just 25 minutes in that 300 hours for that minute. And then lastly, billions of social media posts every minute, every hour. I mean, there's no way to calculate that, but we can all agree, you throwing out something into the abyss of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you got to pay for it for people to see it, and then it instantly hits them, and then they scroll past it, and you're done. So podcasting is very, very powerful, especially when you start to see these stats of other organizations. Now, these are all important. You still need a blog, you still need to do video, you still need to do social media, of course, but the biggest impact is truly podcasting, because they will listen to you from start to finish. The other great thing is networking. all of us are in this room, we're networking, right? We're seeing how we can help each other, but wouldn't it be cool if I said, hey, you know what, I love your style, love your approach. I think you and I could work together, we could do something cool. What do you have in mind? Well, I got this podcast. I think, you know what, Tony is releasing his book. I'm gonna have him on my podcast the week of his launch. Do you think that's gonna help or hurt him? It's gonna help him greatly, and he appreciates that. It brings people together that you would otherwise think, I have no way to reach this individual. Because the most important thing that we have is relationships. And somebody was talking before, relationships, it kind of takes a long time to build a deep one. There is nothing more intimate when you reach out to somebody with one email and say, hey, I'm Jake Naraki, I got this podcast, here's the link, here are my stats. I would love for you to come on my show. I think it would be a service to my audience. And they're a new author, or they have a company or a corporation, and they go, heck yeah, free advertising to your audience that you built up? Boom, I'm in. So when this guy comes on my show, we talk for 5 or 10 minutes before we start recording. We build rapport, we connect, we see more intimate details with each other, and then I have him on my team. When you have somebody on your team, they will support you, because if your ship goes through rough seas, or your ship decides to raise on up and produce a book, they will be there to help you along too. And it's a good kind of feed-off system. Isn't it true? Isn't podcasting, when it comes to working with other people?
Completely winning.
Totally, totally. You bring the value, and the great thing is, even if there's nobody that you found local, you can interview people in your industry from around the country, around the world, see what they're doing, figure it out, and I'm telling you, one email is all you need. You don't have to give a whole backstory, you don't have to tell them what you do and how all this stuff intricate. One email, tell them who you are. It's amazing how people just jump on and they go, yes, I get it, I know what podcasting is, I'm in. So, all right, so next we got beyond the audio. Okay, we talked about video a little bit. You record this 30 to 45 minute podcast. What do you do with it now? It's sitting there, it's out in the best of iTunes, out on Stitcher, Radio, and SoundCloud, really good stuff, but you're thinking, okay, how can I use this to impact my business further? So the first thing is video. You can record your physical audio podcast. You can record it by, with my headset on, and I just set up a video camera, and I'm just talking to the camera, but I'm also talking to my podcast audience. That's number one. You can upload your audio-only episode to YouTube. Have you guys ever been on YouTube and watched a video where there's just a stale image, but yet it's playing? It's music or a story or something like that. You can do that with your audio file for more exposure on YouTube. You can chop up and upload to social media. You can do little snippets and post that on there. And then you can use an episode for an outline for an actual physical high production YouTube video. So I have over 204 podcast episodes, and in that list there are some golden nuggets that I could take, I could re-listen to just to get familiar with the content, and I could sit down and say, yeah, these are the 5 tips for personal growth, and I knock it out of the park. And you have a reservoir of content that is just sitting there that you can just dial back in, listen to, sit down, high production, and knock it out of the park without fumbling around and wasting time trying to craft this beautiful outline of a video. So that's part number one. Part number two, which is a very big one, is transcribe it. You can go on Upwork or Fiverr or any other Elance site to hire somebody very cheaply for them to listen to your audio podcast and then to break it down and basically type it out into Word. From there, you can put that into a book. You can put that into show notes, as in notes on your website of what the episode was about. You can turn that into long-form blog posts or short-form. You can chop it up, put it in social media. You can turn it into content for a website, turn it into content for your own website, like frequently asked questions, or about me section, or what's my story, anything like that. And then lastly, you can send it off to your email list. The ideas don't end here. This is not the one-stop shop. This is not it. I mean, there's a plethora of ideas. Whatever you think creatively, how it can integrate into your own personal business, you can do that through transcribing. Social media. You can build out little frameworks. You can build out pictures with quotes. And a new thing I've been doing is this thing where I don't know if it's going to play. Okay, we'll just pass it up. It was basically a snippet of my audio podcast, and then it was showing my voice wave through my logo. Didn't work out real good there, obviously, but nonetheless, you can do different types of things with the podcast. And again, as Keith can attest to, and SEO. That's why we're all here. We want more exposure. Exposure to our business, which leads to exposure to what we're doing, and exposure to possibly getting more clients into our business. Use the right keywords, the key phrases related to your business, of course. So the last thing is, this sounds really cool, Jay. I'm really interested. But there's a lot of things that are holding me up. I don't feel like I got the right voice. I don't feel like I got the right ideas. But truly, yes, you can, people. Yes, you can. So the first thing is the voice aspect. People go, I don't have a good voice. It's raspy. It's irritated. I have colds all the time. I have, there's the oaks are releasing their allergies, whatever. There's always excuses, but all of us have a perfect voice. Because there is somebody out there that needs your exact voice with your exact storytelling abilities and your exact raw self to make the impact in your business, and it'll make impact in theirs. They need to hear your content. And the best way is through your own personal voice. And you guys all have great voices. I heard you all talking. So the perfect syndrome, right? Everybody needs it to be perfect. So if you're recording your podcast, you're like, oh man, I said or I sneezed or I coughed or whatever. People like that. If you are true with your audience, if you just let them know, sorry, excuse me, and you push through it, people will go, fine. That's human life, right? If I was to have a coughing attack, you guys would just understand and wait patiently until I was done. Now, obviously, if it was, kids screaming in the background and they open your door and start pulling cords and stuff, you need to shut it down. That only happens twice. You need to delete that immediately. But nonetheless, a lot of us proclaim that we're this perfect individual. Our business is amazing, everything is top-notch, everything is crisp and clean. I understand that's really good, but in the world of podcasting, when it comes to attracting the right customer into your business, you need to have that approach set. You need people to like you, that likability that I keep on referring to. And my guy, Zig Ziglar, basically, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. You all heard it. This is the best way to put it into action. Low content. Another thing that people say is, I love the idea, I have this business, it solves an exact problem, but I don't feel like there's enough for me to talk about. What can I talk about for 15 minutes? What can I talk about for 5 minutes? I will tell you, each of us have the gift to gab. You'll be surprised at yourself how long you can talk on a podcast. Number 2, there's already content in your business currently, either from old blog posts or old conversations you had with clients. And also 2, if you don't believe that, answer the questions you always get asked all the time. Hey, I'm a carpet cleaning guy, and people always ask me, how do I get, wine out of a carpet? Well, that's one episode right there. And you could layer them, just top 10 questions of obvious things that happen in the carpet cleaning business. And the content is there. And if you feel like, okay, that's really good, but I want to extend it farther, I don't have any more content, then you interview other experts, you interview other people, personal stories, people that just interest you, people like variety. Even though it all comes back to your business, you need to kind of shake things up because you don't want to just keep on hitting home, hire me for your carpet cleaning, hire me for carpet, and then they'll leave. They'll leave and they won't come back. So all you guys have great content. You just need to think creatively and let it come on out, and you guys will rock it. And the last question here, short term or long term? That is the approach, right? I'm in it for the long term, okay? I really don't see myself stopping my weekly podcast. I air it every single Wednesday. Been doing it for the last 4 years, and it's great. 200 plus episodes. So I'm in it for the long haul. Some of you are thinking, okay, well, that doesn't appeal to me in my business. Fair enough. The short-term approach is this. Again, set up a podcast for the first 8 weeks so you can get that exposure on iTunes. So people come on into your business. After that 8 weeks, shut it down, just let it sit. The reason it is because when you have a new client or a prospect or you're talking with somebody, you can say, hey, I know you probably have a lot of questions about this business. Hey, there may be a lot of things going on in your brain. Head on over to iTunes, download my 10 episodes. They'll answer the most frequently asked questions that I have. And if you feel I'm a good fit for your business, come on in. I'd like to take that conversation on a deeper level. So that is the short-term approach. The great thing is it will sit there forever. And the great thing is you don't have to upload it or whatever. It's always there. You can send it in email subscription. Every single week you can send out a new email with your podcast or your episode. But if you're just thinking, I need something right now that can make a big impact, think of the short-term approach. Okay? Set it up for 8 weeks. Do the work that's necessary. Let it sit. And then have people come back to it as you see fit when they come into your business. The bad thing is it's not really key to do both. You can't really do you're going to do consistent every single week and then go, I'll wait 2 months and then I'll do one and then I'll wait 6 months and I'll do another. Depending on what game you're going to play, short term or long term, you got to stick with it because that's where the real following really comes into play. And so that is podcasting 101 kind of in its simplest form. Now obviously there's a lot more logistics. How do you get in that new and noteworthy section? How do you do a couple of the more finite things? How do you find a good intro and an outro song? How do you set up a podcast? That's all good and all. I mean, there's millions of articles out there. I mean, if you want more information, you guys will find it. Whatever you search for, you shall find. But for me, podcasting has been a big impact. Majority of the people that came to last year's event, was my first event, were from out of state, which was really impressive. This year I had 42 people signed up. 38 of them are, 38 of them are from out of state, but there's like 4 that are living in Milwaukee now. But majority of them are from out of state, all because of my podcast. So it's been really impactful, and I'm telling you, there is more than enough room for each and one of you guys to get in there. And it's very easy to set up, low entry cost, and the impacts are really, really impressive. So I don't know how much time I have left.
Couple minutes.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
leaving a little bit for Q&A.
Oh yeah. So that's all I really have to say. So any questions that I can answer for you guys in particular, yes.
So when you're recording, are you speaking off the top of your head, or do you have an outline or a script, or how do you?
Yeah, I prep just a general outline. You know, when you have an interview, it's very easy. You just do a quick little intro of who this person is. You let the interview or the person you're interviewing basically fill the content, and then at the end you do a call to action or thanks for listening, blah, blah, blah. But if it was a solo show, like I do sometimes, yes, I would just have a general outline, and then I just kind of flow with it. Again, incorporate personal stories. Not only personal stories just from the business side, but your own human world too. People like that to connect.
Do you run through that outline out loud before recording?
I do not. No. I mean, again, now I've been doing this for 4 years. You know, I feel very confident in just jumping on the mic. I mean, obviously in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. You're going to press record, and then you see that thing scroll, and then you're like, and then, you know, it's hard. You get frightened, you know, and then you're like, oh, I gotta walk away. So, yeah, of course, in time. But there's no easier way. If you just come out and say, hey, this is my first time ever doing this, you know, I'm going to give it my best shot, you know, whatever, people understand, and you'll only grow from there. My first podcast is horrible compared to where I'm at now. And it's impressive the growth that you will have. And anybody that's thinking about, 1 second, thank you, I'll get to you in 1 second. If anybody's thinking about, you know, presenting or getting better at the craft of presenting, there's no better way than getting on a microphone and feeling comfortable just talking and pushing through the ums and the ahs. And, you know, and in Toastmasters, they mark you for every time you say that stuff, and I think that's valid. You know, you need to kind of clean it up a little bit, but the best way to get to that level of success in your realm, what you feel success is continuous practice. And I've been practicing for 4 years, and I'm only gonna get better. So, yes sir.
I just wanted you to go back to all your podcasting lives. Other ones, you edit them?
I edit them, yes I do. You know, the funny thing is, in the beginning I would edit them, but now I record from start to finish. I don't edit at all. I just send it out. That is my approach. Everybody's different. Everybody likes to do different stuff. I totally get that. But for me and for my lifestyle, I have 3 kids. I work for the fire department. I do real estate on the side. I'm juggling a lot of things, and I know I need to get this podcast in, and I don't have time to chop things up and edit and pull things.
What do you do in your free time?
I talk to you guys.
He's fire walking every day.
Yeah, I gotta practice. I gotta get my feet in shape. Yeah. Yes.
So, how far in advance do you do these, and how many do you do at one time?
Sure. We were talking before, some people call it, you know, batching, where you would basically record a majority in a chunk and then release it over time. It's just like a blog post. You can type out 20 blog posts and have them loaded into your queue, and then you can release them over time. For me personally, I always record them a couple of days or the day before I release it. I release it every Wednesday morning at 2 a.m. I feel personally I'm able to bring in stories from the past week into my podcast. And so if I record just content, and especially if I do a solo show, I'm not bringing anything personal because I haven't created anything personal yet because I just got done recording 2 other shows. So for me, I like to do it a couple days before. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but majority of the time it works out because it shows my raw self into the episode. But you can batch it. You can batch interviews and stuff like that. That's not a problem.
like all social media, the time of release is important. So what's the magic about Wednesday morning at 2 a.m.?
That is the when I first started, I had no idea. New and noteworthy. I had no idea. I released with 3 podcasts. I waited 2 weeks because I was scared and nervous and like all these emotional stuff that goes on in your head. And then I released 1 and I waited like 4 weeks and then I missed the boat. I was on New and Noteworthy for like 3 days until I understood the whole science behind New and Noteworthy. Maybe would be farther than where I am today. Now for me personally, Wednesday at 2 a.m., that's my sweet spot. I do it at 2 a.m. because it gets released then at like 4 p.m. in Germany, and that's where a lot of my audience is. So, and now again, it doesn't matter. If you're starting out, I would suggest this. Start, release it every Monday morning or Tuesday morning. Time-wise, it really doesn't matter, but you need to be consistent. If you're going to stick with podcasting, once a week is more than enough. If you really want to bang on the drum, 2 to 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's the hot time. If you want to get high rankings though, a release on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because the iTunes store is like the stock market. When your downloads go up, your ranking goes up in iTunes at the top of the board. And then when you don't record a podcast and release it on that day in particular, you drop down. It's an ever-flowing chart of different podcasts getting thrown into the mix.
You mentioned a 3-day pattern. What was the
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
And what if you were after Central Time Zone people? What would be the time that you would release it? You don't have to get caught up in the details that much. I would release it sometime in the morning because again, probably your fans are going to be listening on their way to commuting to the work. So maybe 4 a.m., 5 a.m. would be the optimal time if you were trying to hit the demographic in the Milwaukee region. So when they wake up, your new episode is loaded on their phone. They go into their car, they listen to you, they go off to work.
Okay, other than promoting your business, how do you make money on podcasts?
Yes. So when I first started, I had no idea really where to gather the money. Over time, people would contact me with one-on-one coaching. From there, I realized I hated working with people one-on-one. So then I decided to do a group coaching style. And I have a product called Self-Reset Mastery. It's like a goal program. It opens up at the end of the year and it goes through the whole year. And so I gather a lot of people through that. My live events and other speaking engagements and stuff like that. But when it comes to monetizing, I'm at the point now in my business where I'm able to get sponsors on my show, which allow me to get a little extra revenue for doing something that I personally enjoy. So that's just like a free bonus in the world of podcasting too. So.
Do you have to drink the fancy bubbly stuff?
Well, you want to know the real science behind this?
Yes.
Okay. So this has a lot of minerals and stuff, that are not found in tap water, especially Milwaukee water, because we all know. In preparation for my event, I like to go through this cleanse and to make sure that I am at my optimal energy level because I'm going to be performing for 2 days and I got to bring it. So in that, I don't drink coffee. I try to relax on alcoholic drinks. I filter what I'm eating so I can be my optimal self. I take this as like a sports athlete. I grew up playing hockey and football and sports like the majority of you guys, and you got to prepare your body for doing different things. And the only way to do that is to make sure you're providing the best fuel for the fire, as I like to call it. So that's my style, my approach, but necessarily you don't. You can just go with Milwaukee Tap and I'll be A-okay.
Milwaukee water is fine. We
It
had
is.
Griffiths Purdy in Powell.
Yeah.
We were actually known
Oh,
for good
I-
water.
He loves it for fighting fires. too.
Yeah, it's great. Puts the fires
Out
out.
of my tap bubbling, I got a problem.
That's down there.
Any other questions?
Jake, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Outstanding.